Hi, everybody. Thank you for inviting me tonight to speak with all of you. It's wonderful to see you, and I'm so grateful for the work that you are all doing to ensure that every vote is counted and every voice is heard this year. As was mentioned earlier in the discussion, the work of elections and democracy is about power and the allocation of power in our state, in our country. And we are just over 50 days out from what is sure to be a historic election. And that's precisely why it is so critical that your voices are heard, that every voice is heard this fall. The number of voters expected to participate in our democratic process this year is predicted to break records. And in Michigan, we are already seeing that this will likely be the case, with a record number of people choosing to vote absentee or through the mail. 2.1 million citizens have already requested to have their ballot mailed to them in advance of this fall's election. And you all can do that too. Our website, michigan.gov/vote, has all the information you need to register to vote, to request to have your ballot mailed to you, or to find out where to vote. Okay, I'm not sure. I'll wait if there's a problem. I keep getting muted.
Secretary, I think you're good now.
Okay. So all of this, importantly, is, as we know, happening in the midst of a pandemic. We were preparing for this election, and my top priority is ensuring that every Michigan citizen understands their rights and feels comfortable exercising them and knows their right to vote, whether it's in person or through the mail. And that's really what I want to emphasize tonight, that you know there are numerous options for you to cast your ballot in Michigan this year. You can receive your ballot through the mail. You can choose to get your ballot in person from your local clerk. And you can choose to vote in person on election day at your local precinct. You can also choose to return your ballot through the mail, return it at your local drop box, or return it in person at your local clerk's office at any point prior to election day. But on top of that, again, on election day itself, you still have the option of voting in person at your precinct. Our team is participating in events like this to educate citizens on how to exercise your right to vote. And importantly, we want you to know that whether you choose to vote from the safety of your home or if you choose to vote in person, that your health and safety will not be compromised at any point. These options for you to vote are really for you to choose from. All are equally safe and secure and accessible. In fact, if you choose to vote in person or go to your clerk's office to receive and return your ballot, you will find clerks wearing PPE, masks, gloves, and the like, to ensure that we are doing everything we can to protect your health and safety in the midst of this pandemic. We're also working to ensure those very poll workers, those very people that you come to see when you do get your ballots, if you vote in person, reflect the communities in which they serve. And we've been operating an extensive recruitment effort through our Democracy MVP program to provide new volunteers to ensure every jurisdiction can have enough people to count absentee ballots and open their polling locations, and to ensure when that happens that representatives that reflect the community in which the polling location or the clerk's office is situated are staffing the elections themselves. So I would encourage you, if you're interested, please consider signing up to be one of those paid election workers who on election day will be there to meet voters as they come, wearing masks and gloves and all the rest, and ensure that they have the tools they need to vote in person if they choose to do so. The bottom line is that democracy is a team sport, and I'm grateful for all of you as players and teammates who've helped put on this event tonight, this very important discussion to make sure everyone is able to get this information and stay informed about their rights. So with that, I'm happy to answer a few questions. And again, thank you all for having me here.
Thank you so much, Secretary. And on behalf of everyone, thank you so much for your leadership and allowing us such easy access to voting. So we're very, very lucky to have your leadership in our state. The first question is, how do we track the ballots, and what are the penalties for accidentally voting twice?
Great questions. You can track your ballot on our website. If you choose to vote from home or prior to Election Day, you can enter your information at michigan.gov/vote, and through that access the information about when you have requested your ballot, when your request was received by your local clerk, and if your ballot has been sent. And if you've already completed your ballot and returned it, you can also track its return and receipt right there on that website. Again, that's michigan.gov/vote. Now, it's important that we also ensure one person, one vote principle that's in our Constitution is fully enforced throughout our state. So importantly, every time someone interacts as a voter with our office or a local election official, when you request your ballot, when you return your ballot, if you show up to vote in person, that interaction is recorded in a statewide voter file, so that if you have already voted and you request a second ballot at any time, you can ensure that you are not at risk at voting twice. Meaning, if you show up on Election Day and you've already voted, the voter file will say that as soon as you arrive, and the election worker will inform you of that. Similarly, if you do request a ballot and you decide not to return it by in person at your clerk's office or at your drop box or by mail, you have the opportunity to, if you want, also instead vote in person on Election Day. But just know that only one vote for you will be recorded. And we have lots of protections in place to make sure that's the case.
Thank you so much. Our next question is, what about those currently outside of the US? How can they vote?
We have an overseas voting system that gives you two options to vote absentee, essentially, since you're absent from the country on Election Day. You can request to have your ballot sent to you, and you can do that online at michigan.gov/vote. Enter your address and your ballot will be sent to you. Or if you need, you can also simply contact your local clerk's office directly and request it that way and give them the address. They will then send you your ballot. The ballots begin being sent on September 20th. And so you should receive it within 1 or 2 weeks after that. And we recommend you complete it and return it right away to make sure it's received by 8 p.m. on Election Day. We are looking for other alternatives. We've asked the legislature to allow for the electronic return of ballots. But importantly, if you're overseas and you do request to have a ballot sent to you, you can, in your request, ask to have that ballot emailed to you. You can then print it and return it right away, meaning on September 20th, you can ask your clerk to email you your ballot. And then on September 20th, you can print it out, fill it out, and return it right then and there. That also provides you another option to have really a month and a half, or about 40 days to 45 days to get your ballot in on time. Finally, if you encounter any challenges voting remotely or voting overseas, you can email us also at elections@michigan.gov, and we can help you as well.
Thank you so much. The next question is, for those voting in person, if you were denied the right to vote because of having no ID by the poll workers, what is the next step? Will there be an emergency hotline? Will there be an emergency hotline or something put in place to help immediately?
Yes and yes. I mean, first, you should know an identification is not required. A photo identification is not required to vote unless you're a first-time voter in Michigan, in which you sometimes do, under federal law, have to show your residential verification. But in any event, you can vote by signing an affidavit. And in signing that affidavit, confirming your identity, you should be able to get a ballot. But if you do encounter any challenges or confusion, you can call 866-R-VOTE. That's 866-OUR-VOTE. Someone from Michigan will be staffing that hotline, and you can talk to them and they can intervene. And my office is directly connected with them as well, so that we can also intervene to address any challenges.
Thank you. The next question is, what about people taking ballots to the box for them? Can you help more than one person with their ballot that you don't live with?
No, you're only permitted to return either your own ballot or the ballot of a close family member if they give you permission to do so. You can, however, provide someone with transportation to the clerk's office or the drop box and enable them to drop off their ballot. And importantly, those drop boxes will be under video surveillance in case anything goes wrong and to ensure we're protecting the sanctity of the process. So we're going to be working to ensure that that protection is there. But there are plenty of ways to make sure all voters are able to return their ballots, even if they can't drive themselves or get to the location independently.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, what is the status of creating more ballot drop boxes, and are we more prepared to ensure all mail-in ballots are prepared and counted?
The drop boxes will be in place beginning September 20th, and on our website you will be able to enter your location, and just as your polling place will pop up, the location of the drop box will also be available so that you can find out what local drop box you are permitted to use and drop off. For example, there will be one in Dearborn at the City Council office, and we can, and Bilal and my team that are here tonight including my Deputy Chief of Staff, Zainab, can provide you with that information if you have specific questions about locations of drop boxes at any time.
Okay, thank you. We had another one. Can somebody become qualified to pick up absentee ballots and deliver them to the local lockbox, especially near election day, to avoid mail fiasco? So can somebody be designated to do that?
No, again, it has to be you as the voter returning that, and there are security provisions in place to make sure that law is followed.
So we had someone concerned in our group about having the identity of their political party marked. Is there a way to protect people's privacy about that?
Certainly. On our ballots for November, there is straight party voting, so you do have the option of checking one party as your selection, but importantly, you also can not choose that option and simply vote individual candidates as you go along. So in any event, whatever you vote, that vote is private, that is secured, and no one actually matches your ballot and your votes on that ballot with your name.
Okay, so we had actually some issues of non-citizens registering to vote and voting by accident. What are the consequences of that?
Well, if that happens, we'll work with the Attorney General's office to ensure that we're taking every step possible to protect the sanctity of the vote. The important thing to do right now is our office has really implemented a number of security checks to ensure that people don't get registered unless they're eligible to vote, unless they're a citizen. And we know under past administrations, those protections were not in place and many people were inadvertently registered. So we do encourage people to know the rules, to know the law. And we haven't actually seen a lot of incidents of people actually voting if they're not citizens, but certainly if they did, that would be against the law.
So last election in the primaries, we saw a lot of ballots get they were mailed in past the election date. What would you recommend the deadline to be to mail in your ballot to make sure it's right?
Yep, your ballots have to be received by 8 p.m. on election day. So you should probably mail them in 2 weeks before. The Postal Service is recommending at least 1 week before. But remember, you can always drop it off in person at your drop box or in person at your clerk's office if you miss you wait too long to mail in your ballots. You have other alternatives of returning your ballot if you are uncertain if you mail it, if it'll be received in time.
Going back to the political party, the outside of the mailing envelope was said to have a barcode identifying the political party, not the ballot itself. So is that correct?
Nope, there's no party affiliation. Unlike other states where you do have, when you register to vote, for example, in California, you have to declare a party affiliation. That requirement is not in place in Michigan.
Okay. And we're hearing actually, there's another question. Where can I submit a complaint if it took more than 2 months to receive an absentee ballot for the primary election and arrived on August 30th?
Well, it's important to know your options, and that if an election occurs and you've requested your ballot but you haven't received it, you can certainly let us know, because we track and make sure that ballots are typically sent out on time. But if there's been an issue, we can look into it in your particular instance, and you can send the information to elections@michigan.gov. But again, as voters, it's important that you be vigilant and proactively adjust and adapt to the many challenges that we're all encountering with the pandemic and other issues and variables with our elections. So if you are in a scenario where it's close to the election, you've requested your ballot be mailed to you and you haven't received it, call or visit your local clerk's office and simply request a replacement ballot. If you do that prior to 4 p.m. on the Monday before the election, they'll give you a replacement ballot. They'll invalidate the lost ballot, and you can vote right then and there. On election day, if you feel you're concerned you haven't received your ballot, or if you've mailed it back and haven't been given any indication that it's been returned, you can go to your precinct and ask, and they will have that voter file I mentioned earlier, and we'll be able to see if your ballot's been returned. And if not, they'll be able to mark your ballot lost and validate that. So even if it is returned, it will be not counted, and then you could vote instead in person at your precinct. And we're still working out the details there on all of those pieces, but we want to ensure that that you don't give up on voting just because you request a ballot to be mailed to you and somehow the system doesn't work and it isn't received by the election.
And just to emphasize again, if you mailed out your ballot and you're not sure if it's going to arrive on time, you can spoil it at your city clerk, correct? And vote there.
By Monday at 4 p.m. Mm-hmm.
And then you can also register to vote. If you're at your city clerk by 8 o'clock, can you register to vote and vote at the same time?
Yes, if you are not a registered voter, you can go to your local clerk's office at any point 2 weeks prior to or on election day itself and register and vote and get your ballot and return it right there. You can also do that at one of the satellite offices if your community has a satellite clerk's office that likely will be open in October.
Okay, somebody wants clarification. So to clarify, you can't help anyone you don't live with, and if you help them, you can't drop it off. How about people who are blind or handicapped?
There is a federal protection under the Voting Rights Act that enables individuals to identify someone to assist them in voting if there is either English as a second language or any other type of disability that would require that assistance.
If somebody is going to school out of state, can they still vote, and how?
Certainly, if you're not going to be in Michigan for whatever reason on election day, you can request to have your ballot mailed to you at your address. You fill it out and send it back in. We encourage you to do that as soon as possible, given the challenges with the mail system. And again, you'll be able to track your ballot, whether it's sent and whether it's been received at michigan.gov/vote.
Thank you. Am I correct in thinking that if you were a felon, you can still vote?
Correct. People do not lose their right to vote in Michigan, regardless of their criminal history.
Okay, thank you. I want to be respectful of the Secretary's time, so if we do not have any more questions, I would like to thank the Secretary for her time. Thank you to your staff. Thank you to Assistant Secretary Hester Wheeler. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Thanks for all your work.
Thank you.